Warning. Warning.
Okay, let's run.
Hey everybody, I'm Largo, this is Lair, and tonight we shall be journeying into another infinite playlist from a friend of ours across the pond, as they say, over in the UK, which will be fun. So let's kick off the infinite playlist.
Okay, brothers and sisters and misses and misters, here's your daddy-o with the sounds to go. No shucking, no jiving, I'm telling you, your music's arriving.
And of course, hey, can't do an infinite playlist without my co-pilot in all things love of music, Mr. Wilhelm. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
Swell.
Good.
This is gonna be fun.
Good. Oh yeah.
This was a challenge. This was, dare I say, epic in its playlist proportion, due to the sheer coolness of the material that this gentleman has brought to us. So let me introduce him, and we'll get on with the playlist.
Stu.
Hey, hello guys.
Stu. Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
The universal toy collector. Thank you, sir. This has been, wow, what a fun rabbit hole to dive down looking at your playlist, sir. Great stuff.
Yes, I do apologize for that. I didn't realize it was going to be that challenging, but listen, it's a fun challenge nonetheless.
Yeah,
That's right.
And we appreciate the challenge. It was fun doing the research and fun just listening and enjoying all of these different soundtracks and the memories that it brings up, and the nostalgia, especially.
Absolutely.
Some of these films I haven't seen in a while since I was a kid. Going back through the music, I'm like, oh yeah, this is my zone, loving it. So as we kind of mentioned, we are doing soundtracks and scores mostly because that is what Stu picked for his playlist. And we were just kind of went through and looked at some of the bits behind the scenes for each of these. And let's see what exactly is in Stu's music.
And Jim,
dossier.
you linked the playlist in the description below. So if you want to play
Indeed.
along at home, you could listen. You could turn it on in the background while we're talking about them.
Yeah. So
I mean,
in the description,
you guys,
go ahead.
oh, sorry.
That's
I was
all
going
right.
to say, you guys asked me for like a top 10. So I put that together. And then when I sent it off to you, I was like, man, I've forgotten like Close Encounters, and you've got Jurassic Park, and then you've got Jaws, and there's just so many awesome
Really?
soundtracks out there. And so,
Well, we'll have to do a part two. We'll do
Okay.
the Stu Strikes Back.
Yeah.
But speaking of striking back, our first piece is a classic. My favorite
Absolutely.
of all the Star Wars films, The Empire Strikes Back. And, I'm sure everyone is familiar, but just in case, this is the sequel to the 1977 Star Wars that wasn't called Part 4 New Hope. It was just Star Wars when it came out, kids. That's all we knew. It was just Star Wars. So Empire is the second film in the series, the fifth chronologically of the Skywalker saga, as it became known later. Everything in Empire was set 3 years after the events of the destruction of the first Death Star. So this was also included in the film reference book, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. And I definitely agree with that sentiment. It should be on your bucket list if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Try to catch it in its original format if you can. It's been reworked by Lucas, and they added some things and fluff. But if you can see the pure, unadulterated original that we saw in the cinema, it's just a whole different experience, in my opinion. What do you think, Stu, of the retouches, re-edits, refinishes?
Well, listen, when they did it, I was quite excited for it, but then I saw what they'd done to the films, and I was like, maybe they shouldn't have done that. They should have left them alone. Yeah, clean it up, make it like up to par with today's like screening standards, like the 4K and all that sort of stuff. But to add the bits in they did, I just felt they were unnecessary, really. They didn't really add to the story in any way, shape, or form. But saying that, the music hasn't changed. It's still as classic and as classy as ever. And I think John Williams outdone himself on this film. I mean, how could you have topped Star Wars back? I mean, you've got the Imperial March, you've got Yoda's theme, you've got Han and Leia's theme, the chase through the asteroid. I mean, what a theme that is. It's just full of excitement, full of fun, and it's just an absolute fantastic listen to. And that's why I chose these movies, because I can sit and listen to the whole album all the way through without having to fast forward a track or anything like that. Every single one of them are absolute class. And what a great
Williams is Williams. I mean, his music is timeless.
Yeah.
And when he did Star Wars, it was so groundbreaking, and it's like, how are you going to top that? And yet he did. Empire has some great pieces that are unique to Empire that build on what he did in Star Wars, but are their own entity and beautiful.
Yeah.
As far as the rework stuff, adding some of the backgrounds in Bespin, I thought did make it seem more grand in scale.
Yeah.
But adding in some of the like the cut pieces with Jabba and some of that other, it's like, it wasn't necessary. I agree. What do you think, Will, of the film in general, the music?
Yeah. I mean, I love Empire. It is obviously the best film, but I also like Jedi. I love them all, but whatever. It's I know. Listen.
Friends don't let friends play with Ewoks. That's all I'm saying. Should have been Wookiees.
Oh, that would have been fantastic. But I've never listened to like a movie score outside of watching the movie before. Like, it's just never occurred to me, or I've never done it. So, doing that is actually a really new experience for me, and I really enjoy it. So I'm glad that I've got to, I got to do this. So it's
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know when, sometime either late high school, early college, I really got into soundtracks. I just love instrumentals. I love being able to put something on the headphones and just zone out. And this type of music is perfect for that because it puts you back into that frame of when you watch the film or television show or whatever it's associated with. So you kind of get those memories and visuals in your mind from the music. So I love doing that, just listening to the whole album. And this was released originally in 1980 on RSO Records, which ironically were known more for their disco hits. Who knew?
No,
Originally it was it was a double album originally, one of those LPs, long playing records, because so much music, 75 minutes of film music.
Wow.
Now, which version do you have, Stu? Because this has been released and re-released multiple times.
Yeah, I have the what's it called? The remastered version, like the most recent version. I'm not too sure when that was brought out, but the special edition version. So I've got those. So yeah,
but
I mean,
like
the music hasn't changed. Well, Empire, the music hasn't changed. It's just absolutely phenomenal. You know, I mean, I know you've got different bits of music in the Return of the Jedi that they changed for the special edition, like in Jabba's Court and the Ewok song at the end. But with Empire Strikes Back, it's just as good as it ever was.
Oh, absolutely. And the two that kind of really stick out are Darth Vader's theme and Yoda's theme from Empire. Those are the big ones that people remember. What was neat about this original pressing of the double LP is it also came with some information in a booklet. There was an interview with John Williams himself talking about the music. Also explanations of each of the tracks, what inspired him, where he was in the film, looking at the film while he was creating the accompanying composition. So I don't know if other iterations include those bits, but if you're a completist and you want something that is very Empire, this is something that should be in your collection. This original double LP. What I also found interesting, this man just never stopped working. After Star Wars and before Empire, he did The Fury. He did Superman, the movie. Yeah. He also did Dracula, all working with the London Symphony Orchestra. So this man just kept going. He was all through the 80s. He was doing every kind of soundtrack.
He's been going all the way up until the age of 90. So fair play to him. I mean, he knows his stuff and he's just an absolute genius at his craft. So you never get anyone like John Williams again.
Yeah, and he is the man. So American composer, conductor, and pianist, who is also knighted in. He has the what do you call that? The most excellent order. I can't remember what they call it there in the UK, but he's been made a knight. So
wow.
For his great contributions to culture worldwide. And he's done over 7 decades of work in his career. And you pretty much can't think of soundtracks or scores without thinking about John Williams because he's everywhere. Speaking of which, he also is associated with E.T., the Extra-Terrestrial. Wasn't one of my favorite films, but I do love the music.
Absolutely,
So it wasn't a bad film. It just didn't trip my triggers. I like my sci-fi epics to be otherworldly, not a bunch of kids hiding
I gotta say, for this movie, the score itself is more memorable than the movie for me, at least. Because
I agree.
Even just seeing this picture, I hear the music in my head and everything, but I probably couldn't tell you. I haven't watched the movie in so long that I probably couldn't tell you.
It's a classic. It's a classic movie. I mean, I remember watching this at first school, when it was released on VHS, and I was the only one who got quite emotional about it, and that's kind of stuck with me ever since. And I know this is an absolute favorite of my wife's. She loves this, and again, the music is it's just pure John Williams, and the flying theme. I love that. You've got that iconic shot with the the push bike going across the moon, and you got the flying theme. And what I like about that film is you get to hear that theme just very subtly in the film, and it's you hear it every now and again, and every time you hear it, it's just building up and it's building up and it's building up, and it builds up to that scene where they're flying across the moon, and that's just going to stick with me forever. That is just an absolute fantastic.
It's a beautiful crescendo in the film. That moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. and you know, it's a cute story. Boy meets alien.
It is,
Alien
yeah.
wants to go home. He tears
Yeah.
apart his speak and spell to try to make a communicator. You know, and Reese's Pieces. I was not a big fan of Reese's Pieces until I watched this film. I was like, I got to try that.
So,
If it's
yeah,
good enough for
awesome.
aliens, it's good enough for me. But I did not realize until I started researching this, the concept for this film was actually based on an imaginary friend that Spielberg had created after his parents' divorce.
Oh wow.
He was just in a rough space as a kid going through
Yeah.
his parents' divorce, created a persona in an imaginary friend. That imaginary friend became E.T. Who knows?
Wow. That is interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it was definitely a very personal film for him in the creation of the story. And there are a lot of little hints and Easter eggs in this film that I thought were fun
Yeah.
because of the relationship between Spielberg and Lucas and Williams working in different things, especially Star Wars. So when there's the scene where they're going out for Halloween and E.T. sees the Yoda costume on another kid, there's a tiny reference to the Yoda theme in the soundtrack. If you listen for it, it's there.
Yeah.
From Empire, which was kind of fun. Had to go back and listen. It's like, yep, it's there. Just subtle nods.
Yeah.
And
then of course this, yep.
Oh yeah, another great parallel. And I don't remember if I caught this the first time I saw Phantom Menace, but there is a slight, just blink and you'll miss it moment in the Senate where there are delegates from the home planet of the ETs, not named, but you see them in the background there. So they are part of both universes, Star Wars and ET. So I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
I love Easter eggs.
Well, just thinking
What,
about the music for this movie just puts a smile on my face. So it definitely works.
definitely a great score. Yeah.
So how do you use scores in your daily life, Stu? Is it background music when you're doing toy photography and whatnot, or cleaning the dust?
Yeah, if I just want some chill time, I'll just put on some film music. I mean, you see with these, I do like the albums and I can listen to the whole album, but then there are certain themes from certain soundtracks that I just like the theme, but I don't like the whole of the soundtrack. You know, like Arrival to Earth from the Michael Bay Transformers movie. You've got what was it? Oh my goodness. The Batman.
I didn't mean to.
Batman 89.
89.
I mean, I love that theme, but then again, I'm not really keen on the rest of the soundtrack. So yeah, I mean, I can quite happily sit and listen to film music and scores and stuff like that, just to chill out, or just if I'm putting around the house, cleaning and dusting and doing what the chores and stuff. So yeah.
That's one of the great things about having the electronica that we use now. I can put together several different playlists. If I want something that's just jamming, I can pick theme music from certain movies that have a real good driving beat, put them all together in a playlist.
Yeah.
If I want something mellow, I'll get some of the more romantic pieces from soundtracks and put them in a separate playlist. So, and then sometimes I'll just listen to the whole thing cover to cover, so it just depends on the mood. This is one you really just need to stop what you're doing and just enjoy the music. The whole soundtrack is just fantastic. 2000 epic Ridley Scott. Most people are familiar, but I put the Cliff Notes version just in case you weren't. The Roman general Maximus Decimus Meridius, who was betrayed by Commodus. Yeah, those names are a mouthful. The ambitious son of the emperor Marcus Aurelius murders his father, seizes the throne. Poor Maximus is reduced to slavery, becomes a gladiator, rises through the ranks of the arena to avenge the murders of his family and his emperor. And this was actually based on a 1958 book, which was titled Those About to Die. Original title was The Way of the Gladiator. Did not know that. I'm curious to read that.
That is interesting.
Track it down. But this music is very different from other soundtracks. Some of the ways it's put together, I'd never heard anything like it quite the same. And that's all Hans Zimmer. His style is very, very different from other classical composers. And he brought on to this this film Lisa Gerard.
Gerard.
Her style. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what drew you to Gladiator? Just you saw the film, loved the soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, so it had just been released on VHS or DVD at the time, and so I sat down with my dad and watched it, and as well as thinking, wow, what a fantastic film, the other thing that really struck and hit note was the soundtrack. I mean, just such a powerful soundtrack in certain places, but then you've got it like towards the end with that Lisa Gerrard song at the end, "We Are Free," or listen, all soundtracks, they bring certain emotions and stuff like that, and it's a very key part of the story. I mean, the music can tell the story on its own. You don't need words, you don't need actions, you just need to listen to the music to understand that there's a sad moment, there's a happy moment, or there's a big battle going on. And Hans Zimmer, he just nailed this, absolutely nailed it. What a fantastic soundtrack this is.
Absolutely.
Should I say? Yeah, absolutely.
And
So
it is I agree. It's such an understated thing of how impactful the music is at certain key moments in a film.
Yeah.
When they're getting ready for a battle, when there's an emotional scene where someone dies.
Yeah.
Those musical cues really enhance everything that you're watching and really gives the emotion.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely. And I think that's important, and it does get overlooked quite a bit.
It does. I think a lot of people enjoy it, but don't realize how impactful it really is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What were you saying, Will?
No, I was saying certainly. Yeah. I'm guilty of that myself. I'll overlook it and not and definitely take it for granted. I'm that guy. I am.
So this album won the Golden Globe Award for Best Original Score. It was also nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah.
And it was released in 2001, nearly a year after the first soundtrack's release. There's additional music, and this is not uncommon with film soundtracks. There are music inspired by. There are secondary albums that are, music that was never used in the film, but was maybe meant to be and just didn't make it into the cut. Some of it is orchestrated for the film and maybe used in a few incidental pieces here and there. This was a lot of music that was actually meant to be in the film.
Wow.
These were unused tracks and remixes from earlier scores that were put together in a secondary album just called More Music from the motion picture Gladiator. Definitely worth a listen.
Yeah.
One neat thing about this is it also uses audio tracks in between the sounds. So you get the famous quotes like father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance. And then you have the music over that. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely worth a listen. Both the original score and the additional music is definitely worth picking up.
Yeah, definitely.
And, as we said, Hans Zimmer is the genius behind all this. Great sound. He's worked on lots of different soundtracks that we all know and love, but maybe don't know Zimmer was behind. He has a lot of more of an electronic sound, I would say, than orchestral in most of his work. Kind of reminds me a little of what was the guy that was popular in the 80s? Vangelis, guy that did Chariots of Fire.
Okay.
Kind of a similar kind of vibe to how they compose and use a lot of electronics.
Yeah. Well, he did the music for Pearl Harbor as well, and you can, when you're watching the film Pearl Harbor, you can tell it's a Hans Zimmer score because it's like John Williams. You can instantly know that that's John Williams. You know that was Hans Zimmer even before the you saw his name come up in the credits and stuff like that. So, but yeah, very distinct.
Pardon me,
very distinct.
My chair's giving me grief here. But yeah, I agree. Very distinct. He's been all over the place as far as awards, Oscars, Grammys. He's been nominated for Emmys and a Tony. So, which is kind of foreshadowing for something I'm working on with Gojitron. We'll get to that on a future date.
Yeah, look forward to that one.
He has over 150 films. Yeah, it'll be fun. Another challenge. How prolific some of these composers are is amazing. Because writing or composing a soundtrack takes a long time. I mean, often they having initial concepts put together, but until they actually see some sort of rough cut of the film, they don't know how to time it and put things together. So a film production can take what, 2-3 years, and the composition of the music kind of has to move at a certain pace with it. So it's interesting to me how all that comes together, because there's so many different moving parts. It's
absolutely
very amazing that it's not just total chaos trying to put all these things, all the different pieces in one finished product. I don't know how they do it, but I did want to mention about Lisa here. She has a very unusual style, and anyone who's heard Dead Can Dance, that was her previous group she was part of, she created a style for herself. It's basically known as glossolalia, which is a fancy way of saying it's similar to what some Pentecostals would call speaking in tongues. It's a very syllabic, non-language language that she uses in her singing. So a lot of, ooh, ah, la, 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 just using phonetic sounds to create a mood. And you see that a lot in this soundtrack with Gladiator. So you just kind of hear a vocal that's kind of haunting in the background, but there's no real English lyrics to it. It's just, the sound of a voice, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's interesting to know. I'm going to have to look her up now and do some proper research into her and have a listen, because I do like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very ethereal. I'll put some links to Dead Can Dance in the description, as well as the pieces from Gladiator, so you guys can give her a listen. Really neat. Awesome. Just thought that was worth note. Again, another epic. Titanic. Another favorite composer behind this, Horner. This was huge. You couldn't go anywhere in what was this, 2011, 2012 era without hearing something from Titanic on the radio or wherever, excuse me. This was a really big soundtrack in and of itself beyond the film. Sold over 27 million copies. One of the top 100 best-selling albums, just the soundtrack from Titanic. So it's like, wow, people love this. Good music. And again, another one like with Empire, it's been re-released as anniversary sets and remixed, and so a couple different flavors out there to it. But the music is the music, as Stu said.
Again, it's telling the story all by itself. I mean, I remember going to the cinema to watch this, and everybody knows what happens to the Titanic, so I wanted to go and see it for the special effects and stuff like that. But coming out of it, the thing I took the most out of it was the music. Just so emotional in certain areas, and it's very fitting for that time period as well. I mean, you've got like the engines of the Titanic whirling around and stuff like that, and you've got an appropriate theme for that. So it's like the engine and the Titanic's got its own theme, so to speak. And then you get the suspense of the music where it's going to hit the Titanic, and then you've got the sad music when it's hit the iceberg and she's leaving the ship, and they're looking to each other's eyes, and and that song from Celine Dion. Now, me and my wife were lucky to go and see Celine Dion in Las Vegas live.
Wow!
And that was 2015, and she sang at the end, "My Heart Will Go On," and that was the year.
Wow.
James Horner had died. He died at the beginning of the year, and we went at the end of the year. And when she sung that, my hairs just stood up on end, and what I have of my hair on my arms, that is. And it was just so powerful. And she is just an incredible artist. And it was. I mean, I started welling up, and I just got emotional listening to that. A, because of the film. B, because of what happened to James Horner. And it's how can you not? Like this song, and the music is just, he was phenomenal, James Horner. I rate him very highly.
Yeah, and another prolific writer who's been a part of
Yeah.
many different films and really was taken from us too early. He
Yeah.
could have done so much more, but unfortunately, when Titanic first came out, I kind of scoffed, it's just a date movie. Then I watched it, and it is a great date movie. But beyond that, it's a good story, and it does. There are some moments where it catches you in the feels, very emotional.
Yeah.
Especially, watching Rose's journey as, a survivor, looking back and then seeing the flashbacks of what she remembers, the story that no one else knows, kind of thing. It was well done. And
Absolutely.
Celine was the cherry on top. I like her
Yeah.
music, her style. Favorite Canadian, she's great. She did a great job, and this is one of her most endearing songs, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I like it that much. I even attempted to sing this at karaoke once. So, yeah, never again. No, never again.
As you say, there's not enough lager in the world to get me to try to sing this song.
Well,
I couldn't do it justice.
Well, I didn't do it justice, so you were not the only one, mate. So,
but it is a worldwide smash hit, still popular today, and just good stuff. And the man himself, James Horner, passed in 2015, as you said. He's worked in film and television. He won at least 2 Academy Awards, other accolades in his career as well. I didn't realize at the time, but his first film score was The Lady in Red. I don't know if you've seen that film.
No.
Good romantic comedy with Gene. Is it? Who am I thinking of? The guy that was in Blazing Saddles and Willy Wonka.
Gene Wilder.
Oh, Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he plays in a romantic comedy and
Lady in Red.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't realize that was his first score, but did well. And not too much longer after that, he was tapped for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. We'll talk about that in a moment. But it was his score with Titanic that was definitely the best-selling orchestral film soundtrack that he was involved with. It was certainly the one that garnered him the most praise. So great stuff. Segueing into something completely different, Rocky. Specifically Rocky IV, where we see good songs, different from the previous Rocky films. Everybody remembers the Bill Conti, Rocky theme and all that. None of that was used for this film. There were some hints of it, but mostly it was just a different mix. I don't know why, but for some reason they went a different direction on this film. The big hits for this were Survivor's Burning Heart, and of course, James Brown's Living in America, very popular. Training montage, gotta love a montage. There's a good one in this. This was Vince DiCola, which we talked about when we looked at Transformers the movie. Vince DiCola is another fun one who does great high energy, high impact kind of sound, and his montage for this was really good. So what with all these other epic pieces, what brings you to Rocky IV?
Well, like you say, the training montage I thought was an absolutely fantastic piece of music, as was the I think it was it called titled War, when they're actually fighting at the end there. That's a great piece.
Yes,
but it's
War is good.
It's just some of the songs, like Burning Heart. And for me, the bit that sticks out the most is when he's had his discussion with his wife Adrian, and he gets in the car and that beat starts for there's no easy way out, and he's just driving along and he's having those flashbacks, and I just thought, what a tune. And it's a fun soundtrack. I mean, you've got some great songs there, and it was, like you say, a total removal from what we were used to with Rocky from the first few films, so. But this one stood out for me from all the films, Rocky IV. Like you say, Burning Heart. There's no easy way out. Living in America. I mean, what a tune that was. Who can't love that tune? James Brown. And then, like you say, Training Montage. It's just so fitting for the time.
I love the whole Apollo Creed. Going out with those red, white, and blue shorts, doing the whole Living in America scene. And this was
so cheesy, but it just works.
It's totally. It's like a wrestling entrance. It's very
Yeah.
over the top, big
Yeah.
production, fun.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
this is a very
that
different
training
story for Rocky.
montage is my montage. Like if I'm like, you know, trying to get prep for something, I think about Rocky training in this movie. Like, you know, it's
Yeah, because this
like
was
just
more of a
stuck with me for all these years. Like
yeah.
that's always
Yeah.
the one I go back to. Yeah.
The flavor of this film is very different in the fact that Rocky's not just fighting to avenge his friend. He's
Yeah.
literally fighting as the representation of America against this Russian threat. You know, and this
Yeah.
was very big in, you know, Cold War era, and ideologies are clashing. The way it was framed and the fact that all of the people close to Rocky are saying, this guy is going to kill you. You don't want to
Yeah.
go up against him in the ring. He's a monster. He's a machine. And he's just like, I have to do this. I can't back down. And it was just like,
Yeah.
ooh, man, really emotional and just a great film. And the music
absolutely.
definitely fits it. Yeah. So, and then back to James Horner, a classic.
Yep.
Again,
Yep.
just like with Empire, it's the second films in the series that seem
Yeah.
to me to be the best. Wrath of Khan
Yeah.
was the best of Star Trek films. Empire
Absolutely.
was the best of Star Wars. Don't know why, just my personal take on it. This was such a directional shift because Gene Roddenberry had been very instrumental in what was done in Star Trek the motion picture, and it wasn't commercially successful. People were just like, you know what, Gene, take a back seat to this one. We're going to go a different way. So
Yeah.
they took a very different direction with Star Trek 2, and it was much more successful, obviously, commercially, but storytelling-wise too, I think. Nicholas Meyer he wanted a nautical theme. He said, I want, you know, space battle similar to what you would see if you looked at, you know, a traditional naval battle from back in the days of sails and cannons and whatnot. So there was a lot of that flavor in the score, you know.
Yeah.
It was just good, but very different, you know, very different from
that
the motion
theme,
picture.
The opening theme was just fantastic, and it just captures
Yeah.
you straight away. It's, you know, it's just an exciting theme, and it's and it carried on all the way through the film. And don't forget, at this time as well, you know, Star Trek was, I suppose, competing with Star Wars and stuff like that. So the success of Star Wars and stuff like that, you know, so it was important for Star Trek to, you know, get it right. And I think they did for this film, because I think the next one as well, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, again, a great film with a great score. But this one for me, it just story-wise, Ricardo, and I cannot pronounce his surname, so I do apologize. I thought he was absolutely fantastic as Khan. And the score, again, was just an incredible score.
Ricardo Montalban. Yes.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great guy. Originally based on the 1967 Space Seed television episode.
Yeah.
And just carried that story. It was great that they pulled from the original television show that people loved.
Yeah.
Found a new twist and brought that into a whole new storytelling. Wow. There's a lot of behind the scenes with this film. They wanted Jerry Goldsmith. Jerry Goldsmith, of course, had done Star Trek, the motion picture, but they couldn't afford him. They did not have a budget. The studio did not have a high confidence because of the lack of box office for the first Star Trek film. So they're going into this with a much reduced budget. And so the vice president of music for Paramount, Joe Sill at the time, he had heard a tape, kind of a demo tape from James Horner. And he's like, I like this kid. You know, there's something about him. He's got a different style than all these other, you know, audition tapes that I've received. So they approached Horner and said, okay, we want you to do this, but you can't use anything from Goldsmith's score. So he's like, okay. Well, how about if I go back to Alexander Courage and use the original Star Trek? They're like, yeah, that's fine. And that's where we get that opening sound that just takes you right back to the television show, you know, that da-da-da, very iconic.
Yeah.
And he used that and it flows all through, you know, the epic style of the film. And I like the fact too that with his Khan theme, the way he put that together with the, you know, heavy percussion in his mind, he was trying to create an audio version of the insanity of Khan. It's like when you hear that, it's very frantic, you know, you hear it subtly at different points And when you get that first major battle between the Reliant and the Enterprise, then it comes on full bore, and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's unhinged. And
Yeah.
really, it's definitely a great place where you see the music totally builds the intensity of the scene.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I say, that's how important music is, because if you don't have that music around that character, it takes something away from the character, doesn't it? You don't feel the suspense.
Yeah.
You don't feel the hatred towards that character or the anger. I mean, that's part of the music, and that's what does for movies for me. And it's like I say, it's a very vital cog in the film.
Oh,
watching,
absolutely.
definitely. So, yeah.
And you're right. It definitely, how would you say, it informs the person, the audience, of how to feel about a particular character, even if it's just subtle or even subliminal in a way. You know, it's like you know Khan is bad news from his theme, from the music that plays whenever he's on screen, and just very iconic stuff. So,
absolutely.
Another impressive thing about this film I did not know was Horner didn't have a lot of time when he was putting this together. He was still relatively unknown. This was his first big breakout film score, and he had to get it right. He only put this together in like 4.5 weeks.
That's
for
incredible.
a film score. Yeah, that's unheard of, because usually they have well over a year to try to tie this in with how the film's going to go. But apparently the film was well into production, so he was playing catch up. But
some
put
people do
together
their best work under pressure, and he nailed it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially for a young composer as well. You know, that could have made him or broke him. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That you know, do you feel that if the music isn't that great for a film, do you think the film is less successful because of the music, or more successful because of the music, or don't you think has any bearing on that?
I think it has a huge impact. Personally, I think a well-directed, well-scripted film without the proper soundtrack, it can really detract from your emotional connection to the film. Because music is such an emotional piece.
Yeah.
What do you think, Will?
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that they took a risk on this kid, and he delivered. That's what I was going to say. So
no, absolutely. And I would say, part of the reason we're even having this discussion today is because the music, the scores were so memorable that they transcended, being the background to the film to then being, just listen to it in their entirety is a testament to how important they are. You know what I mean? Because what that music does is it conveys, the emotion, it's the heart of the film. And even without the pictures, you're still seeing them in your mind years later when you listen to them. So, I think that there are so many movies that live in our hearts because of the soundtrack and the themes that came with them.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, even E.T. I saw that screen. I haven't seen the movie in so long that, like I said, I visually probably couldn't tell you every part of the movie. I know the gist of it, but that score started playing in my mind the second I saw the screen, and it actually made me smile. So I'm just saying, like, that is the power of music. So, I think it's very, very important. And it's something that I don't know if we've seen like the golden age of it. Like, I just don't know if like there are people walking today or that are going to, the art form itself kind of, I feel like, reached a peak sometime in the, end of the last century. And
I'd say 80s and
just me?
90s soundtracks probably we saw. You could call it a golden age. That's overused, but we had some great soundtracks from some great films. I don't know that anything in the 21st century has really reached that same level. At least not for me.
Well, you've just got to look at the ones that I've chosen in this list. I mean, the majority of them are from the early 80s, like 90s, and I think with the exception of Avatar, I think most of them have been and maybe Lord of the Rings. The rest of them have all been 80s, 90s kind of soundtracks and scores.
Yeah. And do you think it's because of I don't know, is it the frequency in which movies are produced, or the formulaic method in which they're like kind of put, like it's a machine now and they're kind of just like I feel like this is more assembly line than craftsmanship that was in the
Yeah,
in the later part. The movie machine itself has taken on the form
I
of
mean, you look at the way movies were made back then. You had a storyline, you had some great writing, and as I said, that music is part of that story as well.
yeah.
And now I think it's just going all out CGI. The
Yeah.
storylines aren't that great, and the music's
Yeah.
just there to add to that. It's not
Yeah, it
really
just feels
sort of
like
like telling a
nowadays it's like,
story.
yeah, let's take a really cool classic rock song and then have a woman sing it really slow in an eerie way, and like that's
Yeah,
the music
yeah,
soundtrack for the movie. You're
yeah.
like, well, I
Yeah.
hate it.
I think with the exceptions of the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah.
because I do like their soundtracks. I mean,
Oh yeah.
they're fun soundtracks and some great songs there. Yeah, I can't really think anything off the top of my head that I can listen to all the way through. Like I say, there's certain themes that I like from certain scores that I will listen to, but other than that,
Mhm.
for me, it's got to be the whole album.
Yeah, I would say the innovation, the ability to take risks has kind of gone away. Everything's very cookie cutter now.
That's
It's
very
very
true.
corporate.
Mhm.
And I think that ties into the music as well. It's like,
Well,
look,
and
we don't want you to take risks. Just do what we know will work. So
well, just
Yep.
like
this
they
is,
say, necessity is the mother of invention. If they have these banks of, if it's easy and no one really has to come up with something, they won't. You know what I mean? Like
right.
we're challenged to what's available to us. So, you know,
Yeah.
there weren't as
Speaking,
many. People could just
yeah.
push buttons now and kind of spit something out that works for them.
Oh,
So
yeah. Everything has become very heavily reliant on pre-made, pre-designed, formulaic stuff, whether it's looking to AI to build music, which is something I think we're going to see more of in the future, or,
Mm.
just heavily sampling things that came before. Speaking of invention, this is a piece from
yes,
both the motion picture and Wrath of Khan that was very unique and very experimental. The blaster beam is what this weird instrument is called that you see here. It's basically a large metal beam with guitar strings pulled across it. And if you remember in the original motion picture, when V'ger came on the scene, there was that
Yeah.
weird kind of funky, like a low, I don't even know how to explain it. You just have to hear the sound,
Yeah.
that was the blaster beam. It's a very
Wow.
otherworldly kind of thing. And this is how it was created, was this weird instrument. The instrument had been created prior to this fella, Craig Huxley, but he kind of perfected it and patented his own version of it. And he used this not only for V'ger, but came back in Wrath of Khan and used it for when they talk about the Genesis project, when they do that whole CGI piece talking about what the Genesis will do to a planet. This same sound is used in that presentation as well. So I just thought it was an interesting bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Craig Huxley himself is very interesting. He like I said, he patented this version of the blaster beam instrument itself. He's used it in a couple of other films and television as well. Little known fact, he is also an actor and had a little cameo in the original Star Trek television show where he plays Kirk's nephew. Just a little cameo role, but he's been involved with Star Trek for a long time behind the scenes. So it's kind of neat that they brought him back for this.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
would someone invent that today when they have this bank of digital kind of sound effects that someone could create? Would someone go to the lengths to create this just one of a kind instrument that makes this one unique sound nowadays, where everything's so accessible to us? So it's like there's no need to, so no one's going to, so we may never see something this interesting again.
Yeah, it seems like
That's true.
nowadays everybody's using some sort of an emulator, or they'll capture samples of sounds and then work it in a computer, which is not bad.
Yeah.
But this type of raw imagination and invention, I don't think we're going to see that today.
Well, I'll never think about it the same hearing that sound in the movie again. So now that I
No,
know
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, another James Horner classic. He has
features a lot.
he worked with Cameron on Aliens, another great soundtrack, and Titanic, as we've mentioned. The music of this is very ethereal, I guess. because of the use of the Na'vi language that was created.
Yeah.
When Horner put this together, he brought together a chorus, taught them Na'vi, had them sing in Na'vi for some of the pieces, and it's just really neat because you get the feel for this alien race and how their culture is deeply tied to the planet through the use of that music, that chorus.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that stood out to me in this. So the innovation here is using, ethnicity of the alien, coming up with different sounds, different languages, and that was done well with this. What would you say was a standout for you, Stu? Was that or
again?
Else?
It was you go to watch the film. When I originally saw it, I saw it in 3D, and I've got to say it was an absolute spectacular experience. Just it's so beautifully filmed anyway. I mean, I know a lot of it's CGI, but the way it came across in 3D was just stunning. But then again, I've taken away the music, and still to this day, I can just sit and listen to this and just chill in the morning on a Sunday and just have this on loop playing and stuff like that. And yeah, it is, again, it's that theme where they've destroyed that tree, their big tree, their home. They've destroyed that, and you've got those tones in that music that it's, something really bad's happened, and and it again, it's telling the story, and like you say, it's I don't know, it's hard to explain, but you can feel the Na'vi through that music. Do you know what I mean? It's just so fantastic listening to it. And again, James Horner, who's featured a lot in this, he's just done a fantastic job with his scores. And like you say, it's a shame that he's passed on, and because he could have done so much more. But the music for me, again, I remember the music more than the film.
I think the film was a visual feast. Cameron was definitely pulling out all the stops. He was pushing the envelope with what you could do visually. Script wise, it has been derided. Some people have called it Dances with Wolves in Space. That's a fair comparison if you look at the script and the storyline. But that was really not the main push for Cameron. He was saying, what can I do visually? What can I do to create a whole different world and experience? So could the script have been better? Yes. Was the film overall a super awesome experience? Yes, it's good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
And the music was definitely a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Another film where the music is totally part of the whole epic is, obviously the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The Fellowship was so good. And again, ironically, James Horner could have made this another masterpiece, but he turned it down. He was working on some other things. So it went to Howard Shore, who did a fantastic job. He used the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra and the London Philharmonic, worked with London Voices and the London Oratory School, along with some Maori Samoan choirs, to create some of the soundscapes. I mean, it's a soundscape. It's a whole experience for different places that they go during their trek, their quest, if you will. So Shore wrote almost 4 hours of finalized music for the film. And so many different influences and styles, trying to convey, the what it is when you enter the realm of the elves, or how the dwarves should sound when you hit Moria, or just so many different emotional cues through the music for different aspects of the film and the cultures that are represented. So
definitely. And again, it's got that theme with the Fellowship, where the Fellowship's formed, and you start hearing the theme, and it progressively gets, it crescendos up to that point where they're at the top of the mountain, and they come over the top of the mountain, and that's, you got the Fellowship of the Ring theme just blaring out. So that's, their fellowship is complete. They're all there. And then after that, it starts, what's the word? Not decomposing. I guess it is, because
deteriorating.
Deteriorating, because the Fellowship is then starts falling apart at that point. You're losing people. You lose Boromir, you lose Gandalf, and then Frodo and Sam go off on their own. So the Fellowship of the Fellowship theme isn't quite as strong as what it was at that pivotal point where they're all together coming over that mountain. And again, you know, the Rings even got its
Mhm.
own, you know, theme and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And it's
Oh
this,
yeah,
this,
the
this
ring,
music
the
absolutely blew
ring
me
in and
away.
of itself is a very living
Well, it's like
entity
a character,
through
yeah,
the
yeah.
music. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just one of those soundtracks that again lives with me today, and it's just incredible. And this young lady here, wow,
Oh yeah.
she's
Wow.
done some beautiful stuff. Yeah,
I love some of Enya's stuff. Again, a very
yeah,
haunting, lilting sound from her vocals. And she was
yeah,
approached by Howard Shore after Howard Shore is always a big Enya fan, and he went to Peter Jackson and says, "Let's ask if she'll do a song for the movie because she's awesome." And he's like, "Yeah." So they approach Enya. She loves Lord of the Rings. She was very interested. Actually went to New Zealand to see some of the primary edits of the film to get a feel, and then wrote some songs that were used in the Fellowship.
wow,
And she actually made the choice to use Elvish. She went to Tolkien's manufactured languages that he actually constructed as he was building the Lord of the Rings. And so the two songs that are used here, May It Be, which most people know,
yeah,
and the Anaron, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is in the end
yeah,
titles during the credits rolling. The first one is in the Elvish language of Kenya, and then the second one is in Sindarin. So
wow,
you get, again, just like with Avatar, you get the flavor of the culture from the languages that are used in the background of the songs.
yeah,
And in some cases, the whole song is sang in this Elvish, and then you know, I think the link that I'm putting for the Enya has a translation in English, so you'll see the words and
Oh,
you'll hear the words in the
interesting.
Elvish, and then you'll see the English translation.
Mm.
So
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely check that out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Awesome.
she's another fun one. I love some of
Definitely.
her. Again, very much soundscape, not always about the vocals as much as it is about the sound of the voice, similar
Mm.
to the lady that worked with Hans Zimmer
Yeah,
in that, you know, creating an emotional response
Well,
just
this
through
is
vocals.
this is the movie that I'll put on if I'm home. I have nothing. I will just put on the special extended edition of this movie and watch it.
Mm,
And even over the other two, because this one, while the other one have the epic battles, this is the best story. The Fellowship of the Ring, their
yeah,
journey,
yeah.
is my favorite of the three. But you know, that's up to
No,
everyone else. But part of that is just because, like I said, I could just live in this world for
yeah,
oh
I've
yeah,
watched this movie so many times. Yeah.
yeah. And I would agree. Fellowship is probably the best because it sets up the world. There's some great scenes in the other two,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
yeah, I always come back to Fellowship. Another great uh, orchestral piece that is sometimes overlooked, Last of the Mohicans.
mm.
This was good in and of itself, but it's one I had forgotten about, honestly, until I started putting this playlist together and went back and listened. And it's like, I'd forgotten how good the soundtrack was.
Yeah,
And this is something that Will touched on before, the idea of, you know, if you have the wrong sound, would it detract from a film? This is one where it almost did. When Michael Mann put together this film, he originally approached the composer and said, "I want an electronic score." So it was all created for keyboard synthesizer. And then as he was putting the film together, he realized that does not fit. So he actually went and said, you got to rework this. I need an orchestra. So he actually created the sound based on, based on his notes and the composition he'd already done for synthesizer, and then had to rework it for an orchestra. And he didn't have a whole lot of time to do this because the film was already behind production.
mm.
And actually came out with some really good sounds. So again, working under pressure, sometimes you get something good.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
a couple of standouts for this that I thought were really good, beyond what Trevor Jones and Randy Edelman did in and of the score itself, was the use of some traditional sounds from Irish, almost folk tunes, like with using "I Will Find You" from Clannad. Planad. And Promontory is actually based on an old Scottish reel called The Gale by Dougie MacLean. And I went back and listened to some of his earlier pieces, and just great, evocative of a culture, good sound. And it was just reworked to make it fit in with The Last of the Mohicans, which was definitely, it made sense for the setting. You know, this was the French Indian War. There was still a lot of cultural influence of the immigrants who'd come over, part of the fur trade and whatnot. A lot of Scots, a lot of Brits who had made their living during that time in the Americas. And it was just neat to see how they had incorporated that feel into the way the music sounded.
Oh, definitely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, this apart from Star Wars, I'd never really sort of like taken that much interest in soundtracks. So I was predominantly Star Wars, Empire, Return of the Jedi. This was the first film that made me actually stand up and think, wow, okay, and notice different film scores. So you know, other than Star Wars, this was the first one that I like fell in love with. And this sort of like like ignited my like for film scores. And so this holds, you know, really true to my heart. It's, you know, it's a great soundtrack, and I love listening to it. That opening scene where they're chasing the elk, and then the music to that, and then the actual main theme itself.
Yes.
And then I Will Find You. It's just phenomenal. And it's just, I love Clannad, and I love Irish music as well. I just think,
I remember going to the movies and seeing that. And my friends, I was 17, I guess, or 16 or 17 at the time, you know. And I think I talked my friends into going to see that instead of some other movie, because I was like, no, let's check this one out. This looks really interesting. And like, to this day, like, people still bring up that time we watched The Last of the Mohicans, because it was such a great movie.
It was an epic film for the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was.
And I haven't watched it in so long. But that beginning scene where he's being chased is like, every time I'm out hiking, I think about it all the time. Like, I do. I really do. Like, you know, and that music starts playing, and, you know, I might just start running through the woods, and it's, I love it. Absolutely. I got to watch it again. You just reminded me of something.
What I liked about that film is I think it's so very innocent in the fact that it's not heavily reliant, if at all, on CGI. It was all done with set and actors and stuff like that. So it felt real. Do you know what I mean? It looked real. So I mean, I think that's why I bought into that as well. Then the music on top of that, it was just an added bonus, and it was just a fantastic watch.
Oh yeah. Clannad, I was first introduced to Clannad probably somewhere in the late 80s. And then of course they were featured on this soundtrack with Last of the Mohicans. This particular song was on one of their albums called Banba, and very successful. But they've been around since the 1970s. It's a family group. I think it's a bunch of different brothers and cousins and you know, sisters that all came together to form this group, and different family members have come and gone. But they started with a very folksy sound, and then have explored other, you know, electronic keyboards and harmonies. Some people pin them as new age, but they're not really new age. There is some new age elements to some of their later pieces, but you know, rock and smooth jazz and even Gregorian chant will be found in some of their sound. So their sound has evolved as they've gone on. So definitely worth a deep dive. Clannad by themselves, you could do a whole show on just the evolution of their sound. But they were definitely fun in this. And that reminds me, like we were talking about before we came on the show, this film and its relation to its orchestral score is very reminiscent of what happened with Lady Hawk, which Will had mentioned. And I'm like, oh yeah. Lady Hawk was a great film, but it had an electronic score that just didn't fit the film. It's like, I don't want synthesizers with my high fantasy. I want orchestral. And for whatever reason, budget or what have you, they chose to go with electronic sound for that. And it's very jarring when you go back and watch the film.
It was just something I wasn't even sure if anyone else had even noticed it. I think even when I attempted to watch it recently, it just stood out as so just, you know, it clashed with the movie so much. And I think I tried to Google it at the time, and like there was no one else talking about it. So I was like, maybe this is just me. Maybe I changed. I couldn't
Yeah,
tell. So when you were thinking the same thing as I was at that same moment, I was like, whoa, there you go.
maybe we need to do a Lady Hawk deep dive because it is
Oh, I
curious. I want
I
to know
love the movie.
why.
I
Yeah,
love that movie. So oh my god.
yeah. So this kind of sparked that. I'll pin that for a future look. But
Oh yeah.
another good popcorn flick. Every song on here is a banger, as they say.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is. I always thought of this as a very Americana kind of film. As a Brit, what drew you to Top Gun?
Well, just the I don't know if just Tom Cruise made this film look so cool. Everybody wanted to be Maverick. You know, you had a young Val Kilmer, and you just thought, wow. And again, you watch it now, and it's as cheesy as anything. But
Oh yeah,
everybody wanted to be Maverick. Everybody wanted to fight one of those F-14 Tomcats. I mean, that's my favorite,
I mean,
fighter jet of all time. I
it
mean,
was so popular that many Tom Cruise
absolutely,
movies
absolutely.
after it were just Top Gun in a race car,
Absolutely.
Top Gun in
Absolutely.
a bar, Top Gun in
And the
yeah.
music, the
Oh, yeah.
soundtrack itself. I mean, who wouldn't want to play guitar and do that Top Gun anthem? I mean, for crying out
yeah.
loud. I mean, I still wish that I could play the guitar just to do
Sure.
a few chords of that Top Gun anthem. It is just, you have it on the radio, you have it turned up loud, and you're just sitting there and you're going, yeah, what a fun film, a fun soundtrack.
Yeah,
Quality
in the
all
mid
over it.
'80s, you couldn't go anywhere in America without hearing something from Top Gun. It
Yeah,
was the best-selling soundtrack of '86, one of the
Yep.
best-selling soundtracks of all time, and
Yeah.
top of the charts, number one in the U.S. charts for 5 consecutive weeks in '86. All Music has a fun quote. I really like the way they put this. They say, "This album remains a quintessential artifact of the mid '80s." I'm like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Bombastic, melodramatic sound, and it did. It dominated the pop charts for a time. And
Yeah.
you go back and like you say, you get certain songs that evoke imagery from the film.
I will
Yeah,
tell you, I
and-
do not race airplanes or jets taking off on my motorcycle without listening to this. So
Yes, because I still feel the need.
The Need
The
for
Need
Speed.
for Speed.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
I mean, listen, it was a fantastic movie, and I can't remember how old I was when I watched this. 86. So I would have been 12 years old, and I just thought it was so cool. The aviator sunglasses. I mean, come
Oh
on.
yeah. This is 12-year-old testosterone fuel. It's total rocket fuel.
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
a matter of
Wow.
fact,
Yeah,
I asked for, I wanted a jacket. I wanted a leather bomber jacket. And unfortunately, what I got was like, remember that like synthetic leather, like pleather?
Pleather. Ugh. Yeah.
And it came with a bunch of patches on it, but they were like really cutesy, cartoony ones.
Oh.
Like it was made for probably a kid. It was a little small for me too. I think it was made for a younger kid. It's cute, but I was like, yeah, like 11 or 12 at this time.
Right. You
So I
wanted
remember-
cool, and you got cosplay. It's like, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, it was like something for more like a child. But I remember taking the patches off and trying to make it cool, and I wound up just ruining the jacket. But I remember opening it on Christmas, seeing the collar, and I was like, yes. And then, oh,
Oh man.
Yep. Yeah, fun times there. And of course,
Yeah,
some of the biggest
definitely.
songs that came out of this were Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone.
Yeah.
It was huge. It was everywhere. You heard it all over the place. And it ironically didn't hit number one, which I thought it did. It was kept out of the number one spot by Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, which was, of course, a huge hit at the time as well.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
almost, but not quite. But it was totally top of the charts for a long time.
Yeah. What a
And,
great song. Great tune.
Yeah. And the video for this is fun. I think I've linked that in the description as
Oh,
well.
okay. Yeah. I'm going to have to give that a watch. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Totally, just popcorn fun scenes from the film with the jets and,
Yeah.
Kenny Loggins. Yeah. It's a great combo.
Absolutely.
And then for the more, the deeper romantic side, not that there was a huge romance in the film. There was kind of there was a romance, but it was just kind of tacked on. But this song is great. Just listening to the song separate from the film, it's a really good song in and of itself.
And one of the craziest coincidences before the show, people, was Stu and I were talking, and during that, we both shared the same hairdo right now. So I showed him a picture of mine when I was a kid, and he showed me a picture of his hair when he was a kid, and it was identical to their haircuts.
Absolutely. I mean,
I had the one on the bottom there. He had the swoosh on the top. So just amazing that we've come full circle.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Those 80s hairstyles, man.
Absolutely.
I think I've burned most of those pictures.
The lead singer, the female lead singer, actually auditioned for Princess Leia in the 1977 Star Wars. So she auditioned for Princess Leia.
Hey.
I could totally see it. She's got the look.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, I was like gobsmacked when I found that out. So yeah, but
yeah. Ironically, this song was not written for Berlin. It actually was meant for a couple of other different artists who looked at it, turned it down for whatever reason. I think they were like the third choice to record this, but they knocked it out of the park. Did a great job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Looking back now, it's like I can't imagine someone else doing this other than Berlin, because they did such a great job with it.
It's like you were saying about James Horner turning down the Fellowship of the Ring and the Lord of the Rings movies. How different because those films could have been if he'd have done the score for it. You never know, do you? So yeah, maybe in hindsight, it was a good thing that he was busy and Howard Shore stepped in and done it. So
yeah, what could have been. Howard Shore did a great job, obviously, but I would have loved to have seen Horner's take on that epic.
Yeah.
Again, with Berlin, they've done a lot of great stuff. This was probably their most popular song in America. And part of that, what we called the new wave of artists, a lot of British sound was coming into the American airwaves at that time. And so just really fit the times, fit the sound that we were experiencing. And, so it was great as part of Top Gun. I think it's great as a separate piece in and of itself.
Yeah, definitely.
As well as all their back catalog stuff. So definitely check that out. And that, sir, brings us to the end of this particular set of soundtracks and scores.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
What a playlist, man. Yeah. Such great memories. And like I said, so many of the things, as we were talking to them, like I said, I am listening. I hear them in my head. So, just great. And some of them I forgot about.
I said to you guys at the beginning of the stream, I was like, there's so many that I could have put in there, like Close Encounters. I mean, again, another John Williams masterpiece, and to have the aliens and the humans talking to each other via music, I just thought that was a stroke of genius. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. One footnote I want to make for people listening at home. Check out HD Film Tributes. They're at HD Film Tributes on YouTube. They are a not-for-profit, just for fun channel. And what he does is he actually puts together montages of film clips to songs that are popular from the films. Wow. And I was looking through his stuff. I used a lot of links for his pieces to represent each of the different soundtracks that we're doing here. So a lot of the links you'll find are from HD Film Tributes. Wow, and this is just a piece that was on his site. I thought I'd share it here. His channel makes zero money from YouTube because obviously copyright. Everything he puts together, the money goes to the original artists. So it gets paid right to Google or the various copyright owners. But he does have a tip jar. So if you like what he puts together, if you like those montages that he creates, throw something in the tip jar for him. And I'll put a link to that in the description below as well. So if you just want a fun Cliff Notes version of a film to listen to, go to HD Film Tributes. He's got a lot of sci-fi, romance, rom-com, adventure. And so these are some neat compilations to get just a taste of a soundtrack with a visual to go with it. So thank you, Stu, for
thank you.
The challenge, putting the gauntlet down and giving me some research to do to get a deeper dive into some of
pleasure.
these.
Like I said, I apologize. I didn't realize it was going to be as challenging as it was. But I do feel you're going to have your hands full with Goji and his musical
Lord.
choices. So I'm looking
yes.
forward to that.
Yeah,
I love
tend to-
Goji, but yes, he gave me quite a headache, and it'll be
Yeah.
fun. That'll be another rabbit hole.
Yeah, look
I
forward
like to
that
think
one.
of these playlists as kind of like a slice of the person who's presenting it to us as soul, you know. So we all just had
Yeah.
a helping, a slice of stew, if you will. And
No,
you
thank
know,
you.
when I listen to these soundtracks or these songs again, I'm going to think of stew. So I love it. I love it. So thank you
Awesome.
for sharing with us.
No,
Please-
thank you for having me
please-
on. It's been
Yeah,
great.
please come again. We need a Revenge
Absolutely.
of Stew with another soundtrack or anything else that you tickles your fancy in the way of music.
Okay.
I like your choices. We obviously have very similar styles and tastes when it comes to soundtrack and cinema. So yeah, it'll be fun to see what you come up with next time. So we
Awesome.
will.
What else do you have that
we'll
you're
look out for
working on,
that.
Stu?
Sorry, Will.
Anything coming up that we should be looking forward to, or the horizon? Fun?
The funny you should say that. I'm going to be taking some time off. I'm going to be having a
Okay.
couple of weeks break from YouTube,
Good.
and then I'm going to be getting back onto it with my collecting life. So I've got episode 54 coming up on recording starts again on the 26th of this month. So that episode will air on the 1st of September. But other than that, I've got some massive projects. I need to redo my display because of the Jabba's Palace or the Boba Fett's Palace. So I need to find somewhere to display that. So I have to rejiggle my collection around. But I have to wait until this is mended because it's still causing me some grief. So
Sure.
I've got to take it easy, guys. I've got to rest up.
You take it easy, enjoy your time off, and we look
Yeah, don't
forward
worry,
to
I
seeing
will.
you when you come back. So
No, thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I think I've got you penciled in for an episode as well, Will, at some point.
that's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Look forward to
Yeah.
that.
Maybe
Look forward
that's
to
why
that.
I was asking. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
now I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
Stu does an excellent interview segment with other toy collectors talking about their collections and what drives them, what brings them to toy collecting. Always a lot of fun. He's had Scuba Pete, some other friends, Goji, to pick their brains on what they love about toy collecting. So please, his link is also in the description. Check out his back catalog of interviews. They're all
Thank
fun.
you.
Yeah.
And look forward to what you got coming down the pipe as well. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
we're well over the hour mark, and I will bid everyone a fond adieu and see you in the near future.
Yep.
So
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great
Cheers.
day.
Thank you.